The Confederation of African Football CAF have announced plans to increase the African Cup of Nations from 24 to 28 teams. With that, I welcome you to another exciting edition of your favorite sports show, Sports Pizza. My name is Edwin Onyebolisia. We have loads and loads to talk about, loads to unpack on the show, from international football to the resumption of club football. Not only football, but of course we have Formula One and tennis lined up on today's show. I always do this in company of my homeboy Bankole Oladuni, who also served as our expert pundit on the Tipstars Corner. Let's catch our breath, go on a short break. When we return, we'll delve straight into all of the actions, starting with the Confederation of African Football. All right, welcome on board. It is Sports Pizza. Edwin in the building alongside Bankole Oladuni. Banky, welcome. How you doing?
I'm good, Edwin. It's good to be here once again. International football. For a lot of reasons, I felt like it was a breath of fresh air. Probably because club football has been saturated, and the change of pace in international football would give you a different perspective to what the level of football at the moment. But it feels good to see club football back. But I feel like even though this was the World Cup punishment round, the round where a lot of things are insignificant prior to the competition itself, it still brought a bit of excitement.
All right, Banky, before we go into the FIFA Club World Cup, let's start with CAF. Plans to increase the teams from 24 to 28. What do you think about it? Because I sat down, I processed it, and I have my own opinion. Let me hear from you first.
Well, so the thing is, and this might sound a bit disrespectful to a lot of African teams, but I don't think we have 28 teams to make an exciting AFCON tournament. I don't think so. I think you look at the 24. Yes, I think 24 could have been the threshold, but when you start extending it to 28, that means you start having teams like Djibouti, you start having teams like Mauritania.
But
all
they
of
deserve
these guys.
to play it.
Nah. I think the AFCON tournament should be the best of the best, and I don't think when you start including the likes of Djibouti, when you start including the likes of Mauritania, all of these guys, I don't think they are they are at the level that would increase the competitiveness of the competition. So 24, I thought 24 was a stretch. The 16 team that we had, if it gave us a different feel, the level of jeopardy also, at the AFCON at that moment also added to the excitement. But now, if you are increasing it to 28, it's just going to be a lot of teams, with lesser quality. I'm not a big fan of that.
Well, so some have said if you look at Europe has about 50 countries. They have 24 teams from 50. Asia, they have about 47 countries. You have about 24 or so in their Asian competition. Why should Africa be different?
The 16 teams you have the United States.
They even have to.
But for Africa,
why should Africa be different?
I think the mistake we make is comparing ourselves to Europe, because first of all, the context is different. The level at which each continent is very different. You look at Africa, you look at Europe. A team like Sweden, probably not in the top 10 for Europe. A team like Sweden will probably be among our favorites for the AFCON. So you look at that level, you look at Europe, and the amount of quality in numbers that they have is very different to what we have. After Algeria, Senegal, Nigeria, Morocco, who else? Egypt, probably Egypt. After those 5 teams, there are no other teams that you can pinpoint and say these are the best teams of the tournament, or these are teams that would give you a run for your money. Yes, you can talk about DR Congo, you can talk about South Africa, but these are countries that have quality in phases. Have quality in different eras. And after the last era of South Africa, we've seen how they've declined significantly. But you go to Europe, aside from Portugal, Spain, you have the likes of Sweden, you have the likes of Georgia, you have teams who, to a certain extent, can put up a fight. To a certain extent, I'll show the level of competitiveness. Even in qualifying, Poland, for example, Lewandowski plays for Poland, Maty Cash plays for Poland, Zelensky plays for Poland. So you look at the mid teams, or I'm not talking about the elite teams, the teams after, the tier B teams, if you can use that word. They are a different level of quality to our own tier B teams. They are a level higher than our own tier B team. So when you have a lot of tier B, tier C teams in a competition, then the competition tends to lose its value, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
I'm more particular about the economic strain it will place on the host countries. Looking at where Africa is right now, there are only a few countries that can host 28 teams. Even if you say, okay, co-host, even co-hosting will also put a strain on some of these teams, because if you limit it to a particular region, at some point they will tell you, you know what, financially we cannot continue to host this tournament. So it's left to be seen how this whole format will unfold. It's left to be seen the structures they will put in place. But again, I think it's going to pass through. They've said they're going to increase
a lot of countries don't have the infrastructure to host a 20 tournaments.
You don't. So it is what it is. But I will keep you abreast of the latest happenings as regards to the expansion of the African Cup of Nations from 24 teams to 28. Away from that, let's go to the World Cup. We saw World Cup qualifiers, we saw friendly games. I'm going to put you on the spot, Bankole. Looking at the teams so far, can we get your top 3 favorites for the World Cup and why you think either of these teams can win the World Cup?
Wow. So for top 3, I think so for the World Cup, it depends on your luck of the draw. Most of the time, that's aside from quality, that's also something that will determine whoever goes on to win. But on paper, on my paper at least, I think France would be my favorite. You look at the quality of players that they have at the moment, not just in the first starting 11, also on the bench, and most of the time in international tournaments, your benches should almost be as good, as your starting 11, or would almost affect games as much as your starting 11. And the continuity from Didier Deschamps, right from Euro 2016 down to
2014,
right from the World Cup in 2014 down to now, you'd imagine that should also be an added advantage. So I think for France, they will be my top favorites. They will be my number 1 favorite. Now, this is where it gets tricky because I feel like England, Argentina, Spain, and the likes are all on the same level for me. But based off the fact that they're defending champions, I'll put Argentina as number 2, and then Spain as number 3.
All right. No Portugal.
Nah.
No Brazil.
Nah.
What do you make of Brazil, the Brazil national team? They've come under a lot of criticism. We don't see the samba football, the quality of players. In fact, with Carlo Ancelotti, this is someone who has left his mark in cup competitions. Don't you think that gives them an advantage? Even though some have pointed out the lack of quality in this side. You got Thiago, Pedro,
Matheus Cunha.
Matheus. Yeah, Cunha is good. Cunha is good. But generally, what do you think about Brazil's chances?
Well, look, that's the problem with Brazil. I think in terms of key areas, they lack quality. Defensively, their best defender is probably Gabriel, of Arsenal. I don't think Marquinhos, has shown that level that he showed in the European, PSG's European title quest. You look at that Brazil team, they don't have a left back. They don't have a right back. Probably Wesley, from Roma. And I don't think he's quality enough. Even in midfield, you have a Casemiro is about 1 billion years old. Still starting. Bruno Guimaraes has been off and on. The consistency of these players has been put into question. I don't think as a collective, they have that level of quality, to compete with the likes of France, to compete with the likes of, Portugal, England, even Argentina. I had a conversation with someone about combined 11. So you do a combined 11 of France and Brazil. How many Brazilian players will get into that combined 11? You do a combined 11 of Brazil and England. How many Brazilian players will get into that combined 11? Even a combined 11 of Brazil and Spain. How many Brazilian players will get into that combined 11? And these are guys who are the favorites. These are guys who are front runners. And it shows you where Brazil are. And it's down to the fact that Brazil has, will I say, the Europeanification, yes, let me use that word, of Brazilian football. Their manager is even an Italian. To show you how bad it has gotten, for Brazil. You have young Estevao, leaving the league at a very
young age. Neymar?
They don't. I don't even understand that as a conversation in 2026. Neymar is not. When you have the likes of Vinicius, you have the likes of Rafinha, you have the likes of Estevao, Matheus Cunha, João Pedro. I do not think a Neymar would make any difference in this Brazilian team. I do not think he's at the level at which you consider him, an X factor, for this Brazilian team, fitness-wise, quality-wise. Don't get me wrong, Neymar was a great player in his prime, but his prime has been over for a couple of years now. So I don't think that should even be a conversation for Carlo Ancelotti or the people picking the Brazilian squad.
Wrapping up this conversation from Africa's perspective, the last time we had Morocco get to the semi-finals, do you think an African team can match or surpass that record?
Yeah, I maybe not surpass, but I think match. I think we have the quality, probably Senegal and Morocco. These are two teams who I would think are forerunners in terms of doing well at the World Cup. But even Cote d'Ivoire to a certain extent, you look at the quality of players that they have. I think they can go toe to toe with, like I said, the Tier B, teams in the world. So I look at that and Senegal for me, Morocco for me, Cote d'Ivoire for me. These are the guys I would be expecting a whole lot more, in the competition to get to at least a semi-final berth, if not, a final for either of these teams. Yeah, so I think Africa should be doing well at the World Cup.
Yes, sir, the eyes of the world will be fixated on Canada, Mexico, and the United States of America this summer, the FIFA World Cup. That will be held without the Super Eagles of Nigeria. It's a sad one. We have to deal with the reality of the Super Eagles missing out on consecutive World Cups. But quickly, Banky, the friendly games, what did you make of it?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We can't learn anything from that. I don't think it's a significant friendly game, given the fact that we don't even know if Eric Chell will be our manager going forward. We are not going to be participating at the World Cup. The AFCON is still a while away. It's still a while away. Yeah. So it's absolutely nothing.
All right. There you have it. Let's go on a short break. When we return, there's more on the show. It is Sports Pizza. Welcome back from that short break. It is the second half of the show, Sports Pizza. Remember, you can follow us on our social media platforms. The handles are showing on your screen. We also have a dedicated YouTube page where you can enjoy all of the previous episodes of the show. All right, let's do club football. This time it is Tottenham Hotspur. They've announced that Igor Tudor has departed after 44 days in charge of the side. No wins in the Premier League, one win in the Champions League, but they got eliminated, and the question is, who's next?
Who's next to get sacked by Spurs?
With 7 games left, relegation is staring at them. They need someone to arrest the tide, arrest the slide, and give them a platform to build on for next season.
So the problem is that anybody who is coming in now to win the relegation dogfight also would feel like he deserves a chance, to take charge of the team next season if he keeps the team up. So you can't meet or you can't have a conversation with the likes of Sean Dyche and expect him to just manage for 7 games, not with a manager of his reputation. I don't think that's going to work. Roberto De Zerbi would also not want to come in, for these last 7 games in case they get relegated. Now is coaching a championship team, so I think they're in a bit of a pickle. I think they made a mistake with the Tudor appointment, and it was something that I said. Igor Tudor, as much as I think he's a decent manager, but he's not the type of manager to arrest a chaotic situation. He's not the type of manager to change or increase the level of stability in a team. If your team is in a bit of a pickle, I don't think Igor Tudor is the man that will get you out of that situation. But since he has been sacked, I think they would have to look within. Bruno Salta seems like the assistant manager to Igor Tudor, and just so you know, Igor Tudor's assistant is still to get a visa to England, and Igor Tudor has been sacked. But at some point they brought in Bruno Salta to be his assistant. So I think with Bruno Salta it would definitely make sense. My homeboy Ryan Mason also, who I'm a big fan of, by the way, also should be in the conversation of the managers who would take charge of the last 7 games. But I worry for Spurs. I worry because this is a team that does not have the mentality, to battle a relegation fight. You look at the players, and these are players who I would consider soft. The likes of Xavi Simons, Ronald Kolo Muani, Richarlison. They have not been in this situation before, so it's going to be, a bit different, especially when you consider their competition: West Ham, Nottingham Forest, Leeds. These are guys who have been there, done it. So for Spurs, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks.
Enough of football. Let's do tennis right about now, and both superstars did the Sunshine Double. Aryna Sabalenka defeated Coco Gauff in 3 sets to win the Miami Open after she won Indian Wells, while Jannik Sinner repeated the feat. In fact, he set a record, becoming the first player to win a Sunshine Double without dropping a set. Jannik Sinner is just 1,000+ points behind Carlos Alcaraz. 2024, take 2. 2026 has started. We're just in the beginning of the second quarter, and you can clearly see that both players are simply the best male players on tour.
Yeah, I mean, this has been the way in the ATP circuit for about 2 years now. Both Sinner and Alcaraz dominating the entire field. But for Sinner, whenever you think Alcaraz is a level above him, he just comes in and just blows your mind.
And I think Alcaraz should be watchful.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. Especially when you consider how Sinner plays his game. You know, he goes under the radar a lot. Alcaraz is more of a flair player. He's the guy who gets you entertained. But Sinner is the guy who, you know, he just wants to get the job done. He just wants to beat you and go home and probably chill with his beautiful girlfriend or something. You know, and that's how it is for Sinner. And I struggle to find a differential, you know, between the two of them. I struggle to know who is better, you know, between the two of them. Yes, they both have their favorites, you know, courts. But I think these are the two guys who would dominate the ATP circuit for a very long time. I don't see any other person. Maybe when I have a Djokovic situation where someone might come out of, you know, nowhere and just, you know, start competing with the two of them. But yeah, for now is a Sinner Alcaraz show. But for the WTA, as expected, I expected Sabalenka to beat Coco Gauff.
She's on fire.
Yeah, my issue with Coco Gauff is she has always been too emotional for me. You know, she plays with her emotions on her sleeve, and that can only get you, you know, to a certain level. Your opponents can actually read that and take advantage of it, and that was exactly what we saw from Sabalenka. And probably the most intelligent, you know, tennis player on the circuit right now. Maybe in terms of the athleticism, she might not be older, but I think in terms of how she reads and interprets, you know, the game itself, I think Sabalenka is probably the best, you know, on the WTA circuit.
And from tennis, we go straight to Formula One. Banky Kimi Antonelli, yes, won the Japanese Grand Prix, finishing ahead of Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc, with his teammate George Russell finishing 4th. And he set a record, the youngest driver in Formula One history to head the championship. He's about 9 points ahead of his teammate. But it was a fantastic race. Yeah, he got the help from the safety car and stuff like that. But again, at the end of the day, he put himself in that position, and it was credit to him and the team. Yeah,
if there's anything who has taken advantage of the new regulations in Formula One is Mercedes. You consider how both drivers have been absolutely bossing, you know, the circuits since the start of the season. But for Antonelli, like I said, I think he got lucky. The safety car derailing Oscar Piastri, even George Russell to a certain level also. I think he got unlucky. He probably could have made the podium, but. You look at Antonelli for a young driver like that, especially after getting his first win a couple of weeks ago. You'd expect, you know, him to continue on that momentum, and that was exactly what he did. But the story of the race is Max Verstappen. You know, you look at Max and how, you know, he's contemplating leaving Formula One.
He said he's not enjoying
it. I mean, if you also have Pierre Gasly, you know, dusting you and leaving you, you know, in the wind, you would also contemplate that. But I think for a lot of drivers, they've been complaining the fact that you can't beat your man in the corners. You know, you can't, if you stretch your car to its limits, the battery, to take a toll on the battery. So there is no point in trying to overtake anybody, because once you overtake him, your car would suffer the consequences of that, and then it will still be easy for the person who you just overtook to overtake you again. And that was exactly what Max Verstappen was complaining about. But you look at how the entire race is hinging, you know, on the qualifying. You know, your how will I say it, the place you finish, or the position you start with. Your starting position determines how, you know, you end the race in this season. And Kimi Antonelli has made sure, you know, he dominates, you know, practice. The Mercedes team basically have made sure that they absolutely boss, you know, qualifying, and that's exactly what we've seen is being dividends, you know, in the race itself. But good one for Mercedes, good one for Ferrari also. Charles Leclerc, you know, doing the business for Ferrari there. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game, interesting season. We are going on the break. For 5 weeks break, and we'll come back in Bahrain, where it's also going to be another exciting race.
There you have it. That's so much information we'll give you on the show. Let's go on a break. We'll give you our video for the week. And when we return, we'll wrap up with the Tipsters Corner. All right, welcome back from that short break. It's time for the final segment on the show. It is the Tipsters Corner. And like we always tell you on the Tipsters Corner, we are not responsible for any bet loss. We'll give you expert analysis on the possible outcomes of these games. You have to be 18 years and above, and always ensure that you bet responsibly. We have 2 games lined up for you this weekend, one in England, one in Spain. FA Cup weekend in England, it is Manchester City versus Liverpool, and in Spain, Atletico Madrid versus Barcelona?
Yeah, for Man City against Liverpool, it's a game where we'll see goals. Both teams have struggled defensively for a while, so I think we'll be seeing an over 2.5 in this game. Both teams to score, draw over 2.5. Also seems likely second half over 0.5 or first half over 0.5. Over 1.5 in both halves. Yes, just align yourself in the way of goals. That's the way it is. But for Atletico Madrid against Barcelona, remember these teams will be facing each other about 3 times in the space of a week. Or in the space of 2 weeks. So I think it's going to be quite tricky. But Atletico Madrid against Barcelona would also provide goals. I think with Barcelona eye line and the form of Atletico Madrid's front line with Julian Alvarez and Ademola Lookman, you'd expect both teams to score. You'd expect an over 2.5 also. Draw over 2.5. Basically, align yourself in the way of goals. that's basically it for. It's a weekend of goals for both teams.
All right, like Banky said, align yourself with goals, but also remember that we are not responsible for any bet loss. We only give you analysis on the potential outcome of these games. This is where we drop anchor on today's edition of Sports Pizza. I'm sure you've had so much fun with us, enjoyed all of the analysis and information. Banky, always a pleasure doing this with you.
Yeah, Edwin, it's always good to be here. And from me to our audience, have yourself a lovely, lovely weekend.
And from me, Edwin Onyebole, say enjoy all of the action from basketball, football, tennis, Formula 1. Enjoy every bit of it. We'll see you same time next week.